Not a bad win for the Minnesota Wild in Denver as they take care of the Colorado Avalanche 3-1. And by not a bad game, a terrific game for the Minnesota Wild, especially on defense and especially between the pipes. Great defense, great goaltending can equalize any offense. And hey, perfect penalty kill. That's another good recipe for a Wild win here in a tough road environment, to say the least. We got a lot to get to, and we're going to have some fun with this one as the Minnesota Wild pick up a big win in Denver. Let's break it all down.
You are Locked On Wild POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Minnesota Wild win by a score of 3-1 over the Colorado Avalanche here today, and pick up one of the more impressive wins of the season, shutting down the Avs in their home building. And Marc-Andre Fleury and the defense combining to limit one of the more potent offenses in the league to one goal. So we got a lot to talk about here. Let's hop into the comments. What a win for the Wild. Big props to the Wild because Blackwood is a very good goalie. They shut him down today. Also, the Avs have been the best team at home the past few years. A Wild win in Denver is a big deal. There's a lot of this game that, and I'm not going to put it this way to disparage the team or anything. There's a lot of this game that didn't make sense, to be honest. You go into a Denver environment that is very tough to win. I can't remember the last time the Minnesota Wild won a game in Colorado. It's been a long time, and the Wilds take care of business. It was a game that without Kirill Kaprizov and without two of your top defensemen, dicey proposition to go into Denver and to steal one. The Minnesota Wild do. The Minnesota Wilds get nothing really in the production department from their top six. They still win anyway because the defense steps up, and now the Minnesota Wild are second in the league defensively in goals by defensemen. The penalty kill, perfect against an Avs team that has been just lethal on the power play for a while. There are a lot of things that wouldn't normally be good indicators of winning that the Wild had in their favor here today. But make no mistake, it was the defense and the goaltending that played a huge role in winning this game, and the Wild deserved to win this one. It's not like they went in and stole one away. They played very well in this game, so that was great to see. Complete shutdown of the Avs forwards, elite Wild defense. Let's take a look at the numbers here. And by the way, if you can't tell, I'm going in the wrong direction as far as this bug that I've been dealing with. So we're gonna grind it out. We're gonna do what we need to do, but I'm definitely going in the wrong direction. 37, or no, that was the Minnesota Wild. Excuse me. Let's go to Marc-Andre Fleury's numbers. The Avs had 44 unblocked shot attempts. 34 of them were low danger. 10 were medium danger. 0 high danger. No high danger looks for the Colorado Avalanche here tonight. That is a huge win for the Minnesota Wild to keep those players, McKinnon, Rantanen, you name it, to keep them out of the high danger portion of the offensive area. That's impressive. So big ups to the Wild defense all around for making sure that Marc-Andre Fleury didn't have to face extremely tough shots. They did their job to quiet things down in front of him. Keith joining us. Awesome win here tonight. Westcott 72. Juracek and Ogren looked fantastic. Yeah, as Michael Russo said himself, bad day for the David Juracek can't skate crowd. Had a whale of a game. And you've been seeing the signs of a guy who is capable of really being somebody that has an impact. And hot off the presses, tweet by our friend Brett Marshall of the Soda Pod. The Minnesota Wild have used a Chisholm-Juracek pairing in 2 games now, both against the Avs, and in those games in 5-on-5. In 21 total minutes, that pairing has not been scored upon. They have been on the ice for a goal. They have a 65.6% attempt share. So 65% of the time that pairing is on the ice, the Minnesota Wild are the ones with the shot attempts, a 61.5% shot share, an 87.3% expected goal share, and a 0 high danger chances against. Juracek has struggled with other partners. It's a tiny sample, but I think I would roll with Chisholm and Juracek from here on out. They have looked great. Good insight by Brett there. It's all about finding the pairing that works. You got to figure out who works best with who, and those two have been very, very good in their couple of games together. It's a great sign that might be a combo that works long term. Winning is fun. Ogren and Juracek can stay. Need to bubble wrap Lauko. Yeah, that was dicey for Lauko to return and then have to leave. He did end up coming back, thankfully. So hopefully it was just a ding and not anything more serious than that. But yeah, that's the last thing the Wild need is to have guys exiting after just getting more people back. You don't need anybody else to go to the injured list. There are too many players on that list. Flower was much calmer tonight in net, and I don't think. I mean, maybe he did know with the fact that Gustafsson was sick on Saturday against Nashville. Maybe he did know that he was going to be starting today, but obviously didn't have a ton of advance notice. But this has been the story with Fleury so far this year, is that he has really upped his game. Last year was an adventure, and this year he has had some very good starts for this Wild team. And now you look at what he has done so far this the month of January, with the exception of the Nashville game. He's been sensational. He's been great. He outdueled Washington. He came in relief and was perfect against St. Louis. Got the win against San Jose when he needed to be on his A game, or that game could have potentially slipped away. And then he helped shut down Colorado. So Fleury has been huge for this Wild team as they continue to try to get things ironed out with Philip Gustafsson. And they will. Gustafsson will get himself back on track. I am of the belief that he's dealing with some, maybe it's a bug, maybe it's an injury. I'm of the belief that he's dealing with something and just needs some time to, get through it. So if you can lean on Marc-Andre Fleury a little bit in the meantime, he certainly looks capable of taking a start or two his way to help keep this team where they need to be. And now the Minnesota Wild in their last 17 games are 8-9 without Kirill Kaprizov, without Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin. That is plenty for me. That's plenty in terms of just holding serve and doing what they need to do. A substantial bounce-back win after the defeat in Nashville. Faber with some heat, and Juracek looked promising the last few games. Fleury is a phenomenon, unbelievable tonight. And John Hines is pretty pointed after that Nashville game. He understood that the Wild were going to make LaRue atone for what he did to Jared Spurgeon. But Hines said, you have to still play the game. If you let it get away from you, it's a game that the Wild definitely should have had. And so he was pretty upset. He said, we did not play well at all against Nashville. And so I'm not surprised that the Wild had a better effort here today, because I'm sure Hines was pretty critical of their performance. He has not been shy about holding the team accountable when they don't play well, because a lot of times when they shy away from what is working for them, then that gets into some of the individual mistakes that need to be corrected. So Hines had them ready to go here today. Shark Boy Ben joining us. Juracek and Ogren are here to stay. What footwork by Juracek on the second goal? Ogie is a dog on a bone on the corners. Also good to see Trenin score the game winner. Depth scoring. You get goals from Middleton, Trenin, and Faber, and you win. It's very fun. It's fun hockey when they get themselves going on the road. As the captain points out here, the Wild are second in the NHL in defensive goals with 29. So that's another portion of the secondary scoring, is the defense stepping in and providing some spark. And the Wild have needed that, and they're getting it. Juracek looking like a great get by Billy already. I know we have debated this quite a bit, but it's quite possible that the Columbus Blue Jackets simply just don't know how to evaluate prospects or how to get players to the NHL level properly. And they didn't know how to get Juracek to the NHL level. Just because a player is a first round pick doesn't mean that they're going to pan out with their current team. The Wild do a great job of evaluating and developing talent. I know it gets frustrating sometimes that we don't see those players as early as we would like, but the reality of the situation is the Wild just tend to lean more cautiously with prospects than a lot of other teams do. Teams rush players up, they have their confidence shattered, and they never pan out. So the Wild development staff saw something that they could work with Juracek, and the results are certainly paying off. So very good to see. And of course, Liam Ogren, let's talk about him. Multiple assists in today's effort, and he was a +3, 3 shots on goal, giving you everything that you wanted and needed from a guy who found his confidence at the Iowa level. That is, I think, part of what the Wild wanted Ogren to get down in Iowa was his confidence, and picking that up. That's a big piece for him. He looked great. I think the Nashville game was just a BS game of we hate y'all kind of a game, and just wanted to release all the buildup. Yeah, I talked about it with Alex a little bit. Is the main objective for the Minnesota Wild in that game on Saturday was to make LaRue atone. Beyond that, Nashville's not a team that, with where they're at in the standings, Nashville's not a team that the Wild are going to have to worry about after the regular season is done, because they have dug themselves too big of a grave to climb out of. So the Wild use that as an opportunity to show that they mean business. Could they have also won the game? Sure. But it's all about how you do in your next game, and bouncing back against Colorado and winning in a tough road environment is a great way to bounce back and to get back in the win column. Hoptics joining us today. Feel good about the future of the Wild. Legitimately going to be good for several years. They certainly have the talent for it. Just continuing to accumulate high-level talent. Just continuing to stockpile young players, young talent, and they're going to just be able to gradually add those pieces into the lineup. The D is going to be a huge piece of that. And it looks like this Wild team has contingency plans on defense. It's a great mix. It's a great combo. Good to see Ogren making himself apparent. Looks like he could be on pace to outscore. Well, that's certainly not going to be difficult. I'd love to see him get a goal here in the next couple of games. The Wild play Utah on Thursday, and then they play somebody on Saturday and Chicago on Sunday. Who do they play on Saturday? They play Calgary at home. Okay. Yeah, it'd be nice for Ogren to get a goal in one of those games. It's always your first goal is always your toughest. Be nice for him to get that here at some point soon. I stand by my statement that the refs absolutely hate Ek. I don't know if there is a single player that takes more abuse during games than Eriksson Ek does. And that's why he is more susceptible to injury, is because he's right in the thick of everything. And he usually pays the price for it. But it'd be nice to have a call go his way a couple of times. That's all I'm asking. Why does nobody say anything when Merrill plays horrible, but when he makes one or two good plays, the commentators brag about it? I don't get it. John Merrill is a player that at this point, and he played very, very solid against the Avs today. If you don't mention his name, he's like offensive lineman. He's like an offensive lineman in football. If you don't hear his name mentioned, he's doing good. He has played much better this year than he has in the last couple of years. And statistically, I know people will not want to believe this. Statistically, him and Zach Bogosian together have been at points like a top 20 D pairing in the entire league in terms of goals against. Now, is that a product of the entire defensive scheme for the Minnesota Wild? Perhaps. But still, they aren't giving up goals as a pairing. So, credit to Billy for just allowing those guys the opportunity to exist within a very solid structure defensively, and not getting exposed nearly as much. Like last year is pretty much an automatic goal. This year, not so much. How about Juracek's sick move off the boards for the assist to Trenin? And Juracek, that's been his thing, is he has those offensive instincts on defense, and in the skating department was where he was going to need work. But that offense has been there. He has the instincts to be able to make those types of plays, which I think is why the Wilds picked him up. You've got plenty of defensive defensemen that can help him out. They can do him a solid by taking a little more of the responsibility in the pairing. But those offensive instincts are just so hard to come by in defensemen, that if you can get those types of players and you can get them incorporated into your system, that's where a lot of the good skill gets developed. You said you wanted an NHL ready defenseman at the trade deadline. Would you be okay with Hutton, who is 8th in Vegas and never plays? I think my whole thing was I would like somebody who is NHL caliber, just as an insurance policy, on the cheap. Because that's really one of the only things that I think could play a major problem for the Minnesota Wild, is somebody getting hurt and not having any ability to do anything about it. Now, Ben Hutton is making under $1 million. He's 31, 6'3". I would certainly look into it. Not a ton of points, but he's if he's capable, it might not be a bad idea to just look at something like that around the deadline. Now, obviously, the salary cap is going to be a major piece of this. I think the Wild are going to need to have somebody be a big broker for them. I'm fine with that. But I would rank it a top 6 forward first, and then like a depth defenseman second. The top 6 help is top on my list. I would much rather get that filled as opposed to bringing in defense, but I think they're both equally important. Denny's stars of the game: Middleton first star, Ogren second star, and Juracek as number 3. I can't argue with that. Pretty astute 3 stars for a pretty astute hockey mind here. So I'm gonna roll with those. Is it not infuriating that Billy asks people to not ask about Kirill, as this is a day-to-day situation? Here we are a month later. If it was anything other than a groin injury, I would be a little concerned that it's taking so long. But the fact that it's a groin injury, if they bring him back too soon and he re-aggravates it, and we don't know, like, here's the other thing that we don't know if it's a pull or a tear. No idea. No idea what is going on with the situation. There just has been a lot of speculation that it's a groin-related injury. At the end of the day, the prize is the postseason. The prize is not winning games in January and February. The prize is getting ready and being ready to go on a legitimate run this year. And Kirill being at 100% is the only way that that's going to happen. So you can win games at the NHL during the regular season because of all the different variables. Backup goaltender, teams playing on the second night of a back-to-back. There are a lot of ways to win games at the NHL level, but when you get to the postseason, it all changes. It's all magnified, and that's when you need everybody to be at their best. And if that's what it takes to get Kirill at his best, he can sit out the rest of the regular season for all I care. Because if he comes back in the postseason and he's not 100%, it's going to show. So I am all about an overabundance of caution with that situation, because if the Wild are going to do anything, they need him to be what he is at 100%. Gus should sit out the 4 Nations and rest. I don't really know what is going on, if it's an injury, if it's illness, if it's workload. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty clear that Gustafsson is just a little off over his last few games, and whether he needs a breather or just needs some time to kind of get himself back to where he has been, that's important for this Wild team. So whatever they need to do to get him back and get him ready, like, do that. I'm glad that this team has shifted from where they have been in previous seasons to where every point counts, to now understanding where they're at in the playoff push and saying we need to make sure that everybody is 100% down the stretch. Like, that's the more important angle of this. The Wild have certainly played well enough to, I think, prove that they are a playoff team compared to some of these others. So it's all a matter of just making sure that they've got everybody that they need operating at as close to full capacity as they can. Commentators mentioned Midzi playing mad, and that is when he plays at his best. He's got that. I think he himself said that junkyard dog. He's got that, and when he plays with it and he plays within himself in that mindset, that's when he does really well. So glad to see him kind of get that back. And I'm sure he's very appreciative of having Brock Faber back because his numbers have certainly started to get back to where they have been in the past. And the Wild are going to need that down the stretch. Going to be so weird when Kaprizov comes back. It feels like we'll be too powerful when everyone is back and healthy. Can we get in trouble from the league for being too good? Well, if anybody's going to penalize the Wild for being too good, it's Gary Bettman. So I hope not. But I don't know. Maybe Gary owes us one. That's my 2 cents. Maybe he owes us one. The fact that we played that good and entertaining of a game while also missing 3 of our most important players is mostly due to the coaching. Hines has his team playing perfect structure, very evident. And he does a good job, I think, of holding the team accountable when they don't play well and getting them back on track. And that's something that Dean lost as his tenure wore on, is just that accountability, holding players accountable for when their performance isn't up to par. But it is. I feel like John Hines does really well with the give and take. He is very good at giving players their credit when they do well. He's also very good at asking for more when they don't. And that's important as a head coach, knowing when to push and when to pull, knowing when players need a little bit of a fire lit and when they need the encouragement. It's no different than a boss in any of our normal works of life. Knowing when somebody needs some encouragement and knowing when somebody needs a swift kick in the rear end, that's a huge part of the battle. And I feel like Hines does a really good job of that, which is interesting because that, I think, was one of the things that he was criticized for most in his previous tenures. But people learn and people adapt through life. The only way that we learn and move forward is through failure. Failure is the ultimate teacher for most people. Where are we at here? When Yurchek gets more time with Andy Ness, he's going to be just fine. I think there's a lot of good in. I think there's a lot of good in his playing profile. It's just about making sure that the stuff that needs to be worked on, making sure that there's a clear path for how to do that. A development plan, as many teams in the NHL have, but some of them don't. A lot of teams just are like, yeah, figure it out. Having a great development plan, and this is a great point by Matthew, being around other great defensemen as well. Between the technical skills of Faber and Spurgeon and the skating of Brodin, it'll only help him. And if we remember Calen Addison, remember the entire Calen Addison experience, I think a lot of the reason that Addison failed here was because he was not willing to get help and advice. And I don't get that same sense with Yurchek. I think he is certainly willing to learn and certainly willing to ask and certainly willing to get advice from people. And that's going to help him. That's going to help him get to where he wants to get to. And I think too, I'm sure the Wild were honest with him when they acquired him as to what they have going on. Obviously, the lineup is pretty full. And so they, based off of his performance, was going to get into the lineup, and look at how he's done since. Not worried about Gus. Goalies have slumps just like goal scorers. And this league continues to trend towards goal scoring as opposed to limiting goals. So it just gets tougher and tougher for goalies to consistently make saves. The one exception is Connor Hellebuyck, the best goalie in the planet. He is the one constant in the goalie room, but so many of these goalies, one year they're not great. The next year they're fantastic. The year after that they struggle. You get your head above water for a second, and then you get pulled right back under. Great 5-man center ice lockdown. Pointed out to Denny, our forwards do a lot of drive-bys near the goal. They need to stop and look for the open puck. I think they miss opportunities there. One and dones are a killer for an offense. If you can't get hunkered into the offensive zone and create multiple opportunities, you're going to struggle to score. And it's Hines has talked about this a lot, that you need to be willing to dig in and do the extra to make it work offensively. And that includes, that's not just the top level guys, that's the depth guys as well. You need to be willing to put in the extra work if you're going to to get goals consistently. The Wild are doing a better job of that, but it's still something that plagues them when they're not scoring. Ek may have had his best game of the year on faceoffs also. He has not looked like himself. Hopefully that's changing. I think it has been mentioned a couple of times that he's battling something. We never know what, but I think it has been mentioned multiple times by Russo and others that he's not 100%. He's just trying to bear, kind of grit through it at this point. I kind of wonder if that means that he'll play in the Four Nations face-off or not. If he's banged up, I think the most astute thing to do would be to give him the opportunity to rest for 3 weeks. We'll see if that's what we get, but he is definitely grinding it out there. And he took 34 face-offs on the road against the Avs. That's crazy to me. And he was at 50% in the dot. That's outrageously impressive. The Wild had the edge in face-offs largely because they were at 50% or better every single player other than Jakub Lauko and Devin Shore. Everybody else was at 50% or above. Eriksson Ek, Goudreau, Hartman, Kuznetsov, all at and Rossi. Although Rossi only took 2. Hines magic again. He just does whatever. He just mad scientists it every time he's out there. Midzi wanting a pound of flesh in that third period. Good discipline all around to see out of the win. Avs getting some digs in. Yeah, that Rantanen shot that Middleton took, he was not happy about that. And that is a thing, as you get to be, I'm sorry, my eyes are just insanely dry. My apartment is super dry, battling a bug. We're grinding it out. As you get to be like higher up in the league as a skill player, you try to get away with more, and the Avs certainly do plenty of that. But it was a good job by the Wild to not let that affect their game. I mean, I know people get frustrated as to why it seems like it always happens to us, because at a certain point, the league finally is like, okay, now you can't do that. We're going to make you pay for it. And so would it be nice to be a team that kind of is able to get in shots like that? Sure. But I'd rather just beat teams on the ice. It's just my 2 cents on the whole situation. John Hines should feel blessed at how good a standing he is with me right now. Other Minnesota coaches are not so lucky. Yeah, I'm sorry for your Timberwolves, Kaylee. They continue to be hideous for large stretches of the season. I can't imagine what that's like, but I hope they continue to battle through it. Juracek has charmed me. He looked great in this game. Will be sad to see him go if he must when Spurgeon and Brodin get back. You never know. I know the seventh defenseman that the Wild have right now is Travis Dermott. If Spurgeon and Brodin come back, maybe you just keep Juracek up. Who knows? He certainly played well enough, but the Wild, again, they are overly cautious with prospects to a letter as far as the development side goes, and to committing to players too early. So we'll see what happens, but he certainly has played well. Charlie Stramel doing great. Yeah, we gave him some stick taps in today's episode. 2 goals against Michigan, and it's great to see him getting to solid performances, because I was pretty hard on him myself, and I'm very willing to be held accountable for being quick to judge. These are all just kids. We just got to let them develop and let their process play out before we throw judgment as to whether or not they're going to become NHL players. It takes time for that to develop, and he's a good, perfectly good example of that process playing out. If the Wild get over that hump, you could legitimately be looking at a decade of dominance. Very well could be. It just depends on how things play out. Joel Eriksson Ek, most persecuted man in America. Spot the lie. Spot the lie. Hey, Seth, I think the youth need to stick. Your thoughts? I mean, if they play well enough, they should be able to stay in the lineup. It just depends. The guys that are out right now, Kirill, you're obviously going to get him his regular spot back. Brodin and Spurgeon, their spots are insured. You look at the roster makeup for this team. Marcus Johansson I would be shocked if he's back next year. Probably the last ride for John Merrill. There are going to be spots that gradually open up for these guys to take. I would much rather feel like we waited way longer than we should have to get young players into the lineup than getting them in too early and being like, oh boy, this guy clearly doesn't have it. I appreciate the patient approach at this point, but it's everybody's personal preference as to how things play out. As much as I hate to say something nice about the enemy, happy to see Mackenzie Blackwood thriving. Got such a raw deal with San Jose. I do wish he was doing it on a different team, though. Yeah, that makes it tough having him be with the Avs, but he's been a revelation, and that was exactly what the Colorado Avalanche needed. They just needed the goaltending to get on track. And now that they have, they are absolutely a force. It would not shock me at all if Colorado passes the Jets. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Because they're, I don't know. They started off 15-1. And what are they since? They're 16-12-3. So they're basically 500 for the last 30 games after having a really incredible stretch to start the season. They're 500 since. I don't know. Yeah, the Wild are in the same boat, but the Wild have had a ton of injuries. I don't believe Winnipeg has. So It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. A rental or two at the deadline would go a long way to bolster the lines in case of injuries, which seem to be awfully common this season. And I think it also would give the team a boost, give them a little bit of a lift. Hey, we believe in what you're doing. We're going to get you some help we're going to give you a lift as the stretch run intensifies. I think that does a lot for a team's psyche, is getting that reinforcement from management of, we really believe that this is a legitimate chance, a legitimate shot. So let's do something about it. I know if Bill Guerin can make something work, he's going to do it. He's never been shy about making trades in the past. You just got to go get a broker. You just go get somebody to take 80% of the salary and you're set. Or you swap a player. Something. There are ways to navigate being tight in the salary cap department. And it's just about you have to pony up a little extra. And that'll be a nice lift. PK was impressive today. I would never have guessed that that the Wild PK was going to be pulling this type of a performance. No shot, but they looked great. They did a great job. It's all about just being consistent. Like, don't turn this into an 0 for 3 against Utah. Otherwise, we're right back at square one. Most important question of the day: how many crumble cookies to celebrate this win? JD, I'm not super enthused by any of the flavors for this week. So, I don't know. Maybe one? We'll see. I think what I'm going to do is just, when I get done with this, I'm going to hop in and turn the water up to absolute full blast hot and just sit in the shower and try to get like a steam room effect. To also try to undry my apartment a little bit, a scotch. That's about all that's on my priorities list at this point. No, it's just water, Britt. I wish, but it's just water for today. In reality, take all the time you can with Kaprizov. He'll be that much more rested. We'll be better at winning without him. It's certainly forcing players to step up, which is exactly what you need. Denny, my show on Sunday is about the Wild becoming a dynasty. That sounds pretty compelling. If I was a Wild fan, I would not miss that at all. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on a ton. So make sure you tune in. Not Tullamore Dew. It's the most annoying commercial in the history of existence. By far. Yurchek, Liam, and Yurov spend time this offseason with Ness like Rossi did. Very possible. If they do, they're going to be in real good shape to make big impacts on the team next year. How do you feel about the Wild putting Ogren on the third line instead of with Rossi? I talked about it last week on Friday, I think it was. I know that second combination with Eck, with Hartman, and with Ogren is not the fleetest of foot, but I do like the fact that you've got two bona fide shooters on both sides. And I would rather just stick with that as opposed to they did switch Eric's neck today. I guess I missed that. where are the actual combos for today? Imagine I could go a full game without making that distinction. Well, I don't know. I don't know how that happens. God, where are the... Oh, they didn't put them out today. Okay. That makes sense. All right, well, anyway, I don't mind tinkering with the combinations, but I feel like Ogren is going to be better suited as a top 6 guy for this current roster than just, taking up a spot. If you need somebody to take up a bottom 6 spot, just put Devin Shore down there. I would just rather go that route if it were me. Just don't like the Four Nations happening during the season. It's going to be weird. I don't mind. I would rather it happen in like May or June. But I don't know. I think the league wants it to be this way to get ready for the Olympic break when that happens again. It's just weird to me to have breaks during the season. I've never been a huge fan of that kind of a thing. Oh, here we go. Amanda got me the line combinations. Oh, so it was Ogren, Goudreau, and Trenin. Foligno, Rossi, Hartman, Boldy, Eriksson, Zuccarello. Huh. Well, it wouldn't be my personal preference for lines, but I'm going to defer to Coach. I'm going to defer to Hines for that one. I put line combinations together, and then statistically they are hideous. So I just react to what happens and what doesn't. Do you think the Wild can win the Central? I think they can make a run for it. Here's the thing about that. Winnipeg has not separated themselves really at all. They've got a 5-point edge on the Wild right now. But like I talked about, since starting the season 15-1, they're 16-12-3. So they're 16-15 since starting the season 15-1. That's a long stretch of playing 500 hockey. And the Wilds, as I mentioned now, 8-9 in their last 17 games. Winnipeg has gained what? 3 points? 2 points in the standings in that entire time? If the Wild get healthy, they were at the top of the Central at I think 17-4-4. If they get back to that level, they can compete with anybody. It's just about making sure that all those players come back fully healthy and going from there. If they do that, then they'll be on it. Absolutely appreciate Hines with line juggling. Dean was frustrating, trying the same things out there for way too long. Yeah, Hines is a lot, very good job of finding the right combinations, and during the game too. It's all about finding what works during the game. You're probably going to have to deviate from what you went with at the start of the game. Dean never did. John Hines does. And that's why I kind of give him the edge in the coaching department. I don't worry about winning the Central. Means nothing. Winning the big prize is where it's at. I like that. The West is so tight right now. Had the Wild lost in regulation today, they'd have dropped into a wild card spot. That win inspired Dallas and that win usurped Dallas and put them in the second spot. And it's going to be tight down the stretch. Dallas has a game in hand. So if they win, they'll be back in the second spot. it just keep pace. Just keep pace with the others at this point. You and Denny mentioned something a while back and didn't have time to ask, but why does Coach Hines not like rookies? Well, Denny answers it here, doesn't trust them, but for me, it comes down to rookies just tends to play more timid and tend to play not to make mistakes, which leads to them not making plays that they should, or any number of things. So I think coaches lean towards veterans more because they know that they're not going to have to worry about that. Hines has been pretty adamant when rookies get into the lineup that it's all about just playing your style, just play your game, and don't worry about making mistakes. He's tried to impart that on some of these players. It's just a learning curve, and Hines is not, like, I want to make this clear too. Hines is not the only coach that has that preference. It's a pretty common trend among NHL coaches. So it's not just John Hines being like, oh, I don't want to play rookies. It happens all over the league. That's why it takes rookies longer to stick once they break in. And sometimes a rookie just needs a handful of games to get NHL experience, go back to the AHL level, work on your game, come back, and be good to go. Bring back Alex Tuch at the deadline. Big physical two-way guy under contract next year for a great $4.75 million. 70 blocks for a terrible Sabres team. Will cost us, but it is an all-in move. I am not afraid of anything at this point, whether it be Brock Besser, Brock Nelson, Alex Tuch, Mikael Granlund. I don't care if it's a former Wild player. Bring him back. Get him in here. And get a buyer, too. Or a broker. So go that route. Denny talked about this on Sunday, and we're getting some clarification in the comments. So Danila Yurov, I'm just looking up his KHL team, and I'll see if I can find a site that shows me the standings in English, so that I can look at that too. The big thing with Yurov is, does his KHL team make the playoffs? Do they make a long run? If they don't make a long run and his contract is done, once his contract is finished, then he is all up for grabs by the Minnesota Wild. Until then, like, if his current team makes a run, then I would imagine we'll see him closer to the end of the season or very late in the year. The KHL season ends at the end of March, then playoffs after that. So it could be closer to April. It depends. The reason we got Murat Huznadinov so early a couple of years ago is because his KHL team was awful. And the moment the KHL season was done, he was here. He terminated his contract the next day, was on a plane the day after that, signed his ELC, and he's in the door. It depends on how long of a run Yurov's team goes on. It depends on how long of a run Denver goes on for whether we'll see Zeev Boyum. That's the big factor with those guys. So we'll find out in a couple of months. How do we feel about Brock Boeser? Seems like it could actually be realistic, but he isn't having a great season so far. To be fair, that Vancouver team is just running over with drama. And for Boeser right now, he has 15 goals in 38 games. So that would put him, I think that'd put him fourth on the Wild in goals. At least at this point. It just depends. It depends on what Brock wants to do. I don't think he has any trade protection. It depends on what Vancouver wants to do. It depends on what Boeser wants to do. Those are the variables on the Brock Boeser side of things. A lot of Tullamore Dew talk in the comments. Just got on, saw that nifty skating by Juracek on the goal. Really nice. Realistically, capping out is the best thing for this team now for everyone else to figure out how to step up and play. And if the Wild keep Kaprizov on long-term injured reserve until the season is done, then they can utilize that $7 million in cap space. So then you could go get Brock Boeser. What do they have? They currently have $7.45 million in cap space. So I'd be fine if the Four Nations wasn't happening at all. Yeah. I don't really get it. So I would probably go in that camp too. Especially if somebody gets hurt, then we're going to be real upset about it. Who you got tonight? Ohio State or Notre Dame? I think I got to go Ohio State. But I guess we'll see. Notre Dame is no slouch. Do the Wild want to be number one with being so much better on the road? It doesn't really. Honestly, if they were the 3 seed, that'd be fine. I think you could walk into any road environment this year and win. With how good the Wild have been on the road, I think you could go into any road environment. And it's crazy because the only team that has a similar home record to the Wild's road record is Winnipeg. I mean, the Dallas Stars are great at home. Colorado is 14-10-1 at home. You can win there. Vegas is 18-6 at home. You can win there. Winnipeg 18-5-3. Dallas 17-6-1. The Minnesota Wild are 17-5-3 on the road. They can win anywhere. Rossi, Eck, and tonight Ogren are proof that cooking in the AHL is a good thing. Work on your game, gain your confidence. Bingo. That's the quote right there. Good work. I like that. I dig that quote. Oh, did they announce the McDavid suspension? I hadn't refreshed Twitter in a little bit. 3 games. Wow. They gave him the hammer. I'm just trying to find it here. Well, anyway. Oh, here it is. 3 games. Wow. That I'm surprised. I'm surprised they gave him that much. To be fair. Looks like Fleury got the chain tonight. I was reading that contract negotiations with Besser are at a stalemate. Vancouver might be willing to dump him for first something rather than let him walk for nothing. The Wild have no shortage of picks and prospects to make something work. And my rule of thumb, I heard this earlier this year and I have followed it ever since. If you are making a legitimate run at a cup, anything that doesn't help you immediately is on the table outside of the obvious, like untouchable prospects. But any sort of a draft pick, any sort of a prospect that's not necessarily panning out, all on the table. You have to maximize your current window, and whatever it takes to do that, you do it. So, draft pick, prospect, I think Besser would be a great fit. There are plenty of other players that could be fits as well. You're going to need to get a broker involved. But do it. Just do it. Go for it. Go for it and see what happens. And, or go get JT Miller. Go save JT Miller from the hellscape that is the Vancouver Canucks right now. It was rumored that he was going to be traded to the New York Rangers. The only thing with JT that's an issue is his contract, because he is signed through the 2030 season at $8 million per. And $8 million per, you can find a way to work that in. But I also just would prefer that the books not get any sort of messy until after Kirill's deal is done. Just my personal preference. I'd just rather get that done and be done with it, and then make roster tweaks after that. So we'll see what happens there. But evidently it was close. There was a very close JT to the Knicks trade that just didn't quite fall through. That's how it goes sometimes. Because New York Rangers are a mess. They're still somehow in a playoff spot. I don't get it. But, folks, I think that's going to do it for today's postcast. I am running out of steam. For Besser to become a Wild player, he would have to take a hometown deal. He may be willing to do that, but time will tell. I'm gonna tap out. Wild win, a good one today, 3-1 over the Colorado Avalanche. They'll be back at it against Utah on Thursday. I think we should be able to postcast on Thursday. I have a game on Thursday night, but I think it also starts at 7. So just keep on the lookout on the YouTube channel for the postcast. Link, trying to schedule those out as far in advance as we can. And enjoy the win today. Enjoy the national championship game tonight. And we'll have another episode coming up for you tomorrow, right here on Locked On Wild. The Wild win by a score of 3-1. Hit that like button before you head out for the day, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.